What if I told you that the foundations of early Islamic Spain were almost torn apart, not by Christians, but by fellow Muslims? In the chaotic early years of the Umayyad Emirate in al-Andalus, it faced two deadly revolts from within. Radical Berbers who slaughtered anyone who didn't share their beliefs, and Arab factions who tried to topple the regime by allying with the brand new Abbasid Caliphate. These weren't minor skirmishes. They were full-scale insurrections that exposed deep cracks beneath the surface of Muslim unity in the West. From Berbers shaving their heads before battle, to rebels flying black banners in the name of revolution, these uprisings weren't just violent. They were ideologically charged, ethnically fueled, and nearly fatal to Umayyad control. The first major uprising was the Berber Revolt of 740 to 741, which erupted in North Africa under the leadership of Maysara and soon reverberated across al-Andalus. The causes of this revolt were multiple. Berber Muslims had long faced social, legal, and fiscal discrimination at the hands of Arab elites, despite their conversion to Islam. This deeply felt inequality, especially the denial of full inclusion in the Muslim community, was compounded by local grievances in North Africa, including famine and oppressive taxation. These conditions produced a volatile mix of religious dissent and ethnic resentment, giving rise to rebellion. The Berber troops stationed in the center and northwest of the Iberian Peninsula rose up in solidarity, driven by deep resentment over the subordination to Arab rulers. These Andalusi Berbers attacked Arab settlements, promoted widespread flight from areas like Astorga and the surrounding mountain regions. Most Arab forces from the peripheral areas were forced to retreat to the center, unable to match their numerical strength of their Berbers. Only the Arab forces in Zaragoza were able to resist due to their superior numbers. The governor of al-Andalus, Abd al-Malik bin Qattan al-Firhi, unable to contain the insurrection, allowed Bali bin Bishr to cross from Quetta with the Syrian reinforcements. These troops succeeded in quelling the rebellion, but not without leaving a legacy of hostility between the Berbers of central al-Andalus and the Arab elite, animosities that, according to al-Razi, endured for generations and would last, quote, until the day of judgment. The author that we're using to make this video, Fierro, emphasizes the sectarian nature of the movement. Maysara and his followers were a part of Kharijism, a radical sect that had survived military defeat in North Africa by forming small theocratic states. But in contrast, in al-Andalus, they failed to establish lasting political institutions. The Andalusi Kharijite revolt bore distinct ideological and symbolic traits. Maysara's movement embraced the doctrine of al-Istirad, legitimizing violence against women and children of perceived enemies, even if they professed Islam. Public signs of commitment included the shaving of heads, likely both a religious ritual and a visual tactic to avoid being mistaken for the enemy in battle. This practice became widespread among Berbers in the center of the peninsula after the revolt. Additionally, the rebels selected an imam to lead them after Maysara's death, suggesting a degree of political religious autonomy from the North African movement. Fierro interprets this as a sign that the Andalusi Kharijites were seeking to establish an independent theocratic leadership. Ultimately, this rebellion marked the first major anti-Arab political and religious revolt in al-Andalus, fueled by the Berbers' perceived marginalization. However, the crushing Arab military response, especially near Toledo, where the Berber imam was killed, ending any serious prospects of a Kharijite state in the Iberian Peninsula. Although the sect lingered, it no longer posed a significant threat. Roughly a decade later, a second major revolt emerged, this time less overly sectarian and more connected to the political struggles following the Abbasid revolution. This rebellion was led by the Kharijite Arabs from North Africa, Hubab bin Rawaha and Amir bin Amr al-Abdari. Their insurrection targeted the Andalusi governor, Yusuf bin Abd ar-Rahman al-Fihri, and appears to have drawn on the support of Yemeni factions hostile to the Umayyads. This exact chronology remains unclear, but sources suggest that this revolt aligned itself, at least rhetorically, with the Abbasid cause, as the rebels raised black banners associated with the movement and likely sought to legitimize their rebellion through affiliation with the new caliphate. Despite their alliances, the rebels struggled militarily. Al-Abdari was besieged in Zaragoza and requested help from al-Fihri, who ignored him. Turning to the Yemenis, the rebels held out for some time. However, they were ultimately defeated, and their movement collapsed in 755, just before the arrival of Abd al-Rahman I, the Umayyad refugee who found the independent emirate of Córdoba. The second revolt, while politically distinct, also used religion to justify its aims. One such example is the rebels' attempt to claim legitimacy by aligning themselves with the Abbasids, marrying the broader use of Islamic legal religious discourse to support political objectives. We have now identified two major political religious movements in early al-Andalus that found traction among marginalized groups: the Kharijite revolt, shaped by anti-Arab sentiment with Berbers, and the Abbasid-linked rebellion, which drew supporters especially from Yemeni factions hostile to the Umayyads. While different in origin and objectives, both revolts illustrate how groups marginalized by the Umayyad-dominated administration weaponized religious ideologies and alternative models of legitimacy to challenge the established order. Together, these revolts revealed that al-Andalus in the mid-8th century was far from stable or ideologically unified. Tensions between Berbers and Arabs, between northern and southern Arab tribes, and between different visions of Islamic legitimacy coalesced into open conflict. The Umayyad regime, though it ultimately survived and reconstructed itself under Abd al-Rahman I, had to contend not just with political rivals, but with the reality that Islam in al-Andalus was already deeply fragmented by sectarian, ethnic, and social divisions. Fierro's analysis thus shows how heterodoxy in early al-Andalus was not merely theological deviation, but a political language, a way for marginalized groups to challenge Arab hegemony, negotiate power, and imagine how new political orders work within the Islamic framework. These early revolts, though ultimately unsuccessful, laid bare the underlying fractures of the Umayyad project in the West, foreshadowing the complex interplay of legitimacy, factionalism, and religious authority that would continue to shape Andalusi Islam in the centuries to come.